Hoppaday, good morning. Thank you everyone for being with us here today. Today's date is June 6, 2025. This morning's public hearing is held by the Committee on Education, Libraries, and Public Broadcasting is called to order at 10 o'clock a.m. Some housekeeping matters that I'll briefly discuss so we can get right to work. The first notice of this public hearing was disseminated to all senators and media outlets on May 30th, 2025, with its second notice disseminated on this June 4th, 2025. The hearing notices were also made available on PBS Guam, the Guam Legislature's website, our legislative calendar, and the Government of Guam's public notice portal. Today we will hear testimony on Bill number 70-38, Committee on Rules, an act to add a new subsection 3135 to Article 1, Chapter 3, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the Guam Department of Education to lease property within its jurisdiction. At this time, I'd like to welcome my colleagues who are joining us this morning, the sponsor of the bill, Senator Joseph Agustin, and Senator Therese Terlahi. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance of AUTHORIZING and Guahan's general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall be first recognized by the chairperson before speaking and shall state their full name for the record. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of today's agenda. Personal inferences to the character and motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. Pursuant to subsection 11.07 of the 38th Guam Legislature Standing Rules, a chairperson may order the removal from a hearing of a committee or a subcommittee of any person who is not a member of AUTHORIZING and Guahan and who fails to observe proper decorum. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in an immediate removal from this public hearing room. With that, we will now proceed to hear testimony on Bill number 70-38. I'll now defer to the bill sponsor for his opening statement. Senator Joseph Agustin, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hoppaday and buenas, my colleagues, and to all in attendance or watching, welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm here today to present a bill that empowers the Guam Department of Education with the ability to lease property within its jurisdiction. That's specifically Bill 70-38 COR, an act to add a new section 3135 to Article 1 of Chapter 3, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorize the Guam Department of Education to lease property within its jurisdiction. This legislation is straightforward in its intent, but is far-reaching in its potential to help strengthen our education system and serve our community for years to come by turning underutilized or unoccupied school properties into possibilities of advancement, sustainability, and reinvestment in our educational system. 20 years ago, Public Law 23-67 was enacted to authorize the Board of Education to establish a fee schedule that each school may use to rent out part of their facilities for community use. This would allow for outside groups to use the gymnasium or cafeteria for a variety of uses for a day. This bill, however, will authorize DOE to execute longer-term leases of unused or underutilized properties. In addition to the authorization, this measure creates a procurement team consisting of 7 members, including representatives from the Guam Board of Education and GDOE, to execute the process for approving leases. Mr. Chair, the revenue earned by these leases will not go into the general fund. Instead, it will be reinvested directly into our schools where it is most needed. Every dollar generated from these leases will help to repair leaking roofs, plumbing, upgrades to classroom, and providing better learning environments for our students. Bill 70-38 will empower GDOE to establish their underutilized or vacant property, lease the property, and use the funding it generates to help maintain actively used facilities. It is about embracing innovation to solve long-standing problems and provide our educators and administrators with the tools they need to create a better value for the next generation, for our students, our schools, and to assist address the challenges in public education on Guam. Mr. Chair, when I mentioned the lease, it even includes, if the department wanted to, they could lease part of the advertisement. You know, you have businesses out there that want to advertise, good drinks, eating healthy and stuff like that. You can lease that out. Even though you do have a law that authorizes you to rent your unoccupied schools until the bill, if the bill is signed, and I hope it does get passed, you can start renting it today and then be prepared to do the lease. And once it's passed, then you can foresee the funding will come into your lap. And I humbly ask for your support. So just mercy, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. And we'll go ahead and start with testimony. Dr. Swanson, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you, Senator and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today and provide support for Bill number 70-38 relative to authorizing the Guam Department of Education to lease properties within its jurisdiction. You're aware of the extensive needs across GDOE to repair, modernize, and replace aging facilities. Over time, this body has been able to provide long-range and predictable funding for capital projects and schedule and maintenance. It's not been consistent year on year. As we see our need for active classroom spaces reduce over time, there's an opportunity for us to generate a revenue stream that can fund normal maintenance and capital projects. Currently, we have 3 campuses that are surplus to our classroom space needs, and there is interest in leasing them over time for other government operations and charter school activities. Leasing facilities to funded and reliable clients can provide us with the predictable resources to maintain the school facilities and reinvest in our school campuses. The struggles in recent years centering on keeping schools well-maintained, failed inspections, and even litigation in some cases can be put behind us. Passing Bill number 70-38 will provide us a legal avenue and authority to generate funds beyond appropriations that we can leverage and improve the climate of all of our campuses. I encourage you to move this bill forward into law and move a guaranteed funding for maintenance without further burden or budgets that strain taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swanson. Chairman Sablan, you may proceed.
Mananas Jesus, Todos Hemza. As chair of the GEB, obviously we have not discussed this as a body, as a board, but in my own personal testimony here, I do support the bill. I just have a few maybe areas that we can amend or areas of concern that we have to look at. And one of them, I know the bill says property under the jurisdiction of GDOE. Now, all the facilities are under GDOE. That's under our jurisdiction. Where I see maybe that a problem may come up is some of the property where the facilities sit on are not GDOE's property. It still belongs to the government of Guam and not specifically under GDOE. So that may be amended because we don't want some other entity to come in and say, wait a minute, that's my property. We need to make sure that that's all clear. So when it comes as a whole, not just we lease the property and then, lease the facility and then they have to go lease the property from some other entity. So that probably has to be looked at. As far as the funds from any potential revenue that comes in from this lease, I would prefer that it be clear that the funds will go to the Guam Department of Education and not just into the general fund. Because if it goes there, then we will not, although the intent is there, we may not see it. And then on the listing of the number of people to be on this procurement of the property, you say 5 from GDOE, from Guam Education Board. To me, that's too many. It can be reduced. Right now, for the Guam Education Board to take any action, actually, they need 5 votes. And so my question is, how many of all these people, how many votes does it require to approve a procurement or to make a procurement go through? Because 5 members of the board, it requires all 5 of them to say yes, or all 5 of them to say no, to have an action be taken. So those are just the things that maybe we need to look at. But certainly, we are in support of having our facilities that are not being utilized to become revenue-generating facilities. And like Senator Sanaga said, we can go beyond just the facility. We go to the fence line. We go to the inside the cafeteria, anywhere where, you know, just like the billboards you see outside, or we can charge for companies that want to, you know, advertise whatever it is that they offer to students or for their education or the improvement of their education. So those are the kind of things that we can look at. But we are in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
And before
Chair,
we get into...
Mr. Chair, hi everyone, I'm here. No. Anyways, Mr. Chair, on the Google Drive, I'm trying to find the fiscal note as well as the testimonies. There's nothing on the Google Drive except the bill itself.
Okay.
Could we get a copy of that, please? Yeah.
Can we take a 1-minute recess real quick? Thank you. And before we start our rounds of questionings, I want to recognize my colleague who joined us, Senator Tello Taitagui. Senator San Agustin, did you want to?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. What would be the recommended number of board members other than, I threw the number 5, and when you look at it, when you have any like your procurement team, it's 50% plus 1, so all you need is 4. But I agree with you, maybe 5 may be too many for the Board of Education. Maybe we should reduce that to 3. The key is we got to make sure that the number of members on the team has to be an odd number. So if we go from 5 to 3, then the 7 becomes 5. And then you can get things probably passed.
Or I'm amenable to that, but maybe specify in the statute that 50% plus 1 is needed.
All right, that can be annotated there. And then you ask for specifically that the money will go to DOE. It says there on the bill, the revenue collected from these leases shall be used for maintenance, renovation, capital improvement projects of the Guam Department of Education. I think maybe we just need to word it where it specifically goes to DOE.
Because right now it doesn't say where it's going to go. It just says it's going to be used for GDOE.
Okay, all right, okay. I think we'll just change the verbiage and we'll make sure. Because that's the intent of this bill. It's not for the general fund. Yeah. It's for the general fund of DOE, nobody else. Okay.
We know what happens there sometimes.
Yes, thank you.
But then also, Senator, on the jurisdiction, I think we have to have clarification as far as the property versus the facility.
That's correct. No, I found that out with the gym that's up in Estumbu. The building is DOE, but the property is Gov Guam. I think maybe we need to change the verbiage here that wherever there's a DOE facility, it encompasses the property also. Maybe we just need to figure that out.
For example, Chief Brody is actually GDOE facility, but it's Governor Guam property.
Okay. Well, maybe we need to try to word this where it'll include the property and captures it. But I'll communicate that with land management and I'll advise the chairman of the result of that interview with Mr. Borja. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. Senator Chalahi.
Thank you. Does GDOE have property that it owns? Or is all the property government of Guam?
I do believe some of our sites, we actually do own the property that's on the real estate records, but that's what we're researching right now to get an accurate inventory. Because we have had another one that was one campus that is partially trust fund land. So, I mean, there's 2 or 3 places it can be, and we're trying to get that specifically defined.
The public law that the sponsor of the bill referred to, Public Law 2367 allowed the board to grant permission for non-school hours to use the facilities that was supposed to be for revenue for the principals to use, but that has not been used. So, and I guess I just wonder why not. If income is what you're looking for. And the other thing is, yeah, I kind of agree. The board is already kind of authorized to do that. They didn't do that. So I'm thinking maybe the board doesn't need to be on this procurement team, and you should just use your procurement specialists. I actually think you should use GITA to, if you're going to lease it out for the most revenue that you can get, maybe you should partner with GITA for some ideas of, you know, what other uses it could be used for higher revenue for DOE, if that's what we're going to do. But, and of course, because it seems like the board is going to have to prove it in the end. I mean, maybe that's not very clear by this, but I think it's supposed to be, you procure it, or you determine how you want to use it, what's the best way to do it with your procurement team, your procurement trained officials, and then you propose that to the board. You get authority that these properties are going to be subject to these terms, right? And then you do your RFP or your bid, however you're going to go out. But I think there should be protections in here where it is competitive, where it is going to be treated like other government of Guam property, where we have provisions required in lease. We have to make sure liability is, so the other law said if someone else was going to use your campus, liability goes to them. All of that, I think, should be very clear in the lease. That's why I would work with your council and your procurement officials, come up with a proposal, and maybe that kind of like of a standard, and then talk to GITA about instead of just regular advertisement, is there anything else that you can do to get more value for use of this property, right? If you're going for the money. I'm also worried that you've got your hands full. This is my biggest concern, right? Is DOE, who's trying right now to deal with federal funds, the loss of federal funds, school maintenance and facilities, opening schools, and all of the other things you're in charge of, now going to set a team aside to take care of procuring or, leasing property? Or can we more efficiently just partner with someone to do that while you have the final say, or you have, the guidelines? Like, for example, I think what DOE's interest would be was to make sure that they can stop that whenever they need the school again, right? And other than that, almost nothing except the money, right? Mr. Swanson.
Senator, my instinct, because of all the things you listed and other stuff that there's still on the list that you didn't mention, my intention would be to go out in a procurement process to identify a real estate management company to handle that, because they have all the mechanics and the tools in place to do it, and contract with them. And having managed property of my own that way, I realize that it works much better when you have someone that's a specialist in that field.
All right. So I think that maybe your team should come up with its own parameters. For example, is there a possibility you need these schools back again? Then that always has to be written into your lease, right? Or if you need to share gym facilities with schools that don't have gyms right now, things like that, if there are any. Just make sure that GDOE is taken care of first before
Absolutely.
anyone else. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I haven't seen the fiscal note yet, so I'll look at that.
Thank you, Senator Choi. Can we get her fiscal note? And before we go to Senator Taitigui, I'd like to recognize Senator Sean Gumatao, my colleagues, and Senator Duenas for joining us. Thank you. Senator Taitigui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for taking the time to ensure that we get the proper documents so that we can review, especially from BBMR, the fiscal impact that it may have or the concerns that it may have. And greatly appreciate, Mr. Chair, that we try to be, paperless and go through. So this information was put on our drive for us to review. So I appreciate that too as well, saving paper. This is very similar to what Department of Land Management does and GITA does as well when it comes to leasing property. So they definitely have years of experience of knowing how to do this. When you said earlier that you're looking at providing some kind of RFP out for, a real estate development company or something to go through that, I think that you might want to reconsider that and look at GITA and Department of Land Management, and especially GITA, because they generate revenue based on the services they provide. And this may be a way of giving back to the government as well. So I appreciate if you, veer away from that predicament and go straight to GITA for their assistance and services in that perspective. But the fiscal note was important to me to listen to what they had to say. And it says the Bureau does anticipate that Bill 70-38 will have a positive revenue impact to the Guam Department of Education in terms of proceeds from the enacted leases of Guam DOE properties. Absent detailed information from the Department of Education, such as the total number and description of Department of Education properties and or office space available for leases, the total square footage and cost per square foot of such properties and or office space for lease, the Bureau is unable to provide an estimated cost impact at this time. So what has changed since the time that they tried to reach out to DOE for this fiscal impact? Has anything changed? Well, it's obvious you mentioned one about thinking about going for a procurement. Is there anything else?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So that's the only thing that you're
Right.
making concerns about?
At the present time, the one thing that we have to do procedurally is actually identify the exact amount, each facility, the amount of square footage that's available, the type and function of the properties that are there, so that we can define it and advertise it that way. And we don't have that kind of description because we have not been in the commercial real estate business before. So that's what we're getting
Right,
defined.
and
We have to have that
yeah.
done first before we go any further with either inside the government or commercially.
And that's concerning to me because Department of Education has showed nothing with regarding responsibility. I mean, there's still mold issues that we're dealing with, and now here you're taking on another, project when we can't even fix what's broken right now in DOE and moving forward, because it's not a simple task just to go out and rent out property and keep on top of it and ensure that procurement is followed, because we have seen what DOE has been done in this last 5 years, and it's not a good. It hasn't yielded anything productive. I mean, the last oversight chair did quite great strides to assist DOE, putting the feet to the fire every single month by having oversight hearings, or not oversight, but informational briefings monthly to see what you're doing. And quite frankly, it seems that it's dropped, and now you're coming into something like this. Now, I do understand PTAs at schools, they generate revenue, they have projects, they try to have fundraisers, et cetera, to assist the schools in purchasing like awnings that are needed for the students, repair of certain parts of the school to help, donate in that perspective, and that's a good thing. I mean, that seems to be going well. The parents seem to doing a great job when it comes to that. But now you're moving into a direction here that, one, you don't even know what properties really belong to you. For instance, Chief Brody School Elementary, which is closed down. Do you own that property?
No, the government of Guam does.
Okay, and have you had any charter schools go to any of the schools that have closed down to look at for potential, wanting to rent already?
Yes, we have.
So you have already had people coming around looking at these properties?
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's a procurement issue right there, number one. Secondly, there has been talk of utilizing the Chief Brody for middle school. Is that still in the making? Is that what, I know there's been discussion about it. What is the progress so far now using Chief Brody as a middle school for Tamuning? I mean, a lot of the constituents in Tamuning, they have to be bused all the way down to Jose Rios or Petey. So what's the status on that?
To be able to convert the campus to a middle school, we have to do a significant amount of renovation, especially in restrooms, because they're designed for small children. So we need to get adult-sized fixtures. There's quite a bit of work.
Can you speak directly into the mic, Mr. Sanchez? Sorry.
Yes, to make that school suitable as a middle school, two things have to happen. First of all is a significant renovation of restrooms to adult size rather than preschool and kindergarten size. The other part of it is there's no gymnasium, so we have to work out the structures around that to what we can handle PE, because it's a limited scale piece of real estate. It's only 3.5 acres. Normally for middle school, you'd want 20 to 30 acres. So that's a big difference. But the community does want a central middle school.
Is it needed?
I'm sorry?
Is it needed?
Is it needed?
Yeah, a middle school for...
In terms of commute and transit time, yes. In terms of total population, that's arguable.
Okay. I'm sorry, the what? That last part?
I said in terms of numbers, it could be arguable, but because right now the Tamuning students travel down to Jose Rios for middle school. So that commute time is much longer than we want it to be.
For Angel, the board, on the board's perspective, what conversations have the board had regarding turning that school into a middle school? Chief Brody.
Actually, it was on our agenda a couple months ago because the Tamuning Municipal Planning Council had adopted a resolution asking the GEB to convert it to a middle school once it's made available. The board did entertain it, but the problem is it will not, although we may support the middle school, it cannot happen without funding to make it into a middle school. And so that's, and remember, since back in 2019, the Municipal Planning Council of Tamuning, upon hearing that Chief Brody may someday be not used as an elementary school, they did, since back then, pass a resolution to make Chief Brody into a middle school. So they did, again, this year, reintroduce that same resolution that they had in 2019, just changed the dates, and asked the board again to consider that if Chief Brody is available, that the first priority would be to make it into a middle school. So there has been conversation on it.
What about price or cost?
Over $10 million.
To make this into a middle school?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it actually, have you talked about lease to own, similar to the other schools that we've done?
No, we have not.
So there's been no conversation with regards to that?
Right, correct.
Are you familiar with Hawaii's scenario, Mr. Superintendent, with regards to leases of property, what Hawaii is doing currently? Doing a public-private partnership scenario?
Not in terms of Hawaii.
Okay,
I'm familiar with what we're doing here with Simon Sanchez and with John F. Kennedy.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going back to the legislation. Sorry about that. Basically, to authorize DOE the scenario to redevelop or lease under utilized school properties. That's what I'm talking about. That the public-private partnership that is done in Hawaii. Have you reviewed what they're doing there?
No, I have not.
Okay, you might want to see what they're doing. Also, Los Angeles as well as New York has these same types of scenario. But it's done thoroughly thought out. It's done in districts where, they're not under a lot of situations that Guam is under with our schools falling apart and not knowing what belongs to them or not. So I think that's something that you might want to look into if this bill does pass. but I do have a lot of reservations on your ability to be able to even do something like this because of your track record right now is not very it's not very good, especially to the public. And I think that you know, there's still a lot of deficiencies that you have to address right now, and it's not always money. It doesn't always have to do with money. It has to do with being able to have the right ideas and enforcing what you do have and being accountable and transparent, and especially fiscal responsible. And we haven't seen that with DOE. So though the idea, the intent of this legislation is good, has worked in other jurisdictions, I do have reservations on your ability to even do anything, something like this. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I mean, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Senator Gumatata.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our Chair of Education and our Superintendent. I just wanted to, if I could start with this, Mr. Chair. According to GDOE's School Facility Master Plan that was issued in May of 2022, you know, it lists the schools, its sites, the leased schools, who's responsible, the square footage, and estimated replacement value. One of the things that it also jumped out at me in just kind of looking at the bill, and I hope I can offer it up to the committee, is an OPA report, 17-02, which was in January of 2017, Mr. Chair, that analyzed government of Guam leases. Now, the report found that in a little over a decade, the government of Guam nearly doubled its annual cost for leasing commercial space, going down from $6.8 million in FY 2004 to $12.5 million in FY 2005. Mr. Chair, since the report, I'm hoping, I know they can't answer, but I'm hoping that the committee can, to add to the bill. Has there been any updated review of the annual rent payments that taxpayers continue to support for leasing office space and other private properties for government operations, and what would be the estimated annual fiscal impact to the general fund and special fund accounts? Why this is important, Mr. Chair, goes to my question to DOE. With respect to your properties, what effort has been made by GDOE to determine whether any of the facilities that are under your jurisdiction, which may be decommissioned moving forward, meets the space and infrastructure requirements of government of Guam agencies that are currently renting from the private sector?
Senator, we're just at the beginning of that work, so it's not complete.
I can add to that. We have currently the JP Torres and Senator Yasumai. We have LBJ in Tamuning, and of course Chief Brody Elementary School in Tamuning. My first impression is that why keep leasing the government agency, why keep leasing government property when we have a lot that we can offer up? And those spaces that are available in those schools can actually be turned into offices of GovGuam. And so that's also another option. And the other side of that coin, Senator, is that if we don't do anything, if it takes us time to lease it out to a private entity, that facility is going to sit and rot and be vandalized, and then it's going to cost GDOE again more in the end, instead of having small agencies come, 5 or 6 small agencies come into the one school and use it. They have the parking lot, the location is there. So that, I believe that's also an option.
And I'm with you in this. And in fact, I was going to ask you to encourage you, Mr. Chair, to talk to your GovGuam counterparts in the cabinet that there may be some vacancies. And again, when we think about the amount of savings that would go to those agencies, I think that would be significant. Also, when we think about underutilized facilities, for example, Southern High School, nothing precludes the department from going into some of these facilities at Southern. And if you can improve one facility, why wouldn't we try to improve a space like that?
Yes, it's things that we at the board are looking at. In fact, I even mentioned it to the superintendent. I mean, instead of leasing this big central facility in the millions of dollars every year, why can't we not use something we already own?
Absolutely. And I just want to refer to your 2022 master plan. One of the interesting notes of it when you read through it, there is in it the plan to convert Brody to a middle school, but it totally needs to get Jose Rios to be converted to a K through 8, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, according to your report. And so if we can convert those two, Mr. Chair, I think it might take Brody off of the chopping block, but again, looking at other facilities, it makes much more sense to perhaps look at these lease facilities. I was talking in Santa Rita to my friends down in Santa Rita, to that village. Why can't we parse off the southern softball field, southern football field, southern baseball field, and lease those properties and generate revenues for Southern High School? I think we got quite a bit of real estate down there that really can assist the not only private sector groups who would be pumping in money to those facilities, but also money into your coffers. And I just say that, Mr. Chair, and I thank you for coming down here today, and thank you, Senator San Agustin, for this bill.
Thank you, Senator Gumatata. Senator Duenas?
Mr. Chairman, and forgive us for our tardiness. There was a promotional down at the governor's office for some customs captains, so we raced right over. So maybe a couple of my questions might be a little redundant, but I wanted to start by saying thank you once again, Superintendent, and of course our Chairman of the Board, that despite all the challenges that exist within Department of Education, the schools continue to receive much higher grades with regard to the inspections, and to all the teams that were put together to ensure that we get to the place where we are now. So I know, sometimes you take a lot of hits, but the fact is that you've done great work in that area, and congratulations to those schools who continue to pass inspections, and many of them with flying colors. Having said that, coming in a little bit tardy, as I said, maybe I'll just ask once again, obviously the author has set this legislation out, I think, to be broad as its onset, I want to just get from the two of you that this is something that you support and you're currently under development, in particular at the board level, because you've been announcing the use of schools and things that you've been doing with schools that are been closed, as well as what you've done in terms of cross-levelings with staff. So is this a timely bill and something that makes sense to you to set the direction? Duncan Paul?
Yes, of course. Of course it's a timely bill. And I just want to, Senator left already, but we didn't ask for this. It's something that was proposed, and we just come here to support it or not support it. But as far as GDOE, the board asking for some more mandates, we did not ask for this. But we all have to think out of the box, Senator. We all have to find opportunities, and when there's an opportunity to help GDOE in some way, somehow, someday, we will. We know our limits, but a proposal like this, we can always amend it and make it workable. We're talking about too many GDOE board members, well, and they want to use some other, we can use the Guam Land Use Commission and make that a part of the, GIDA, as they suggested. I mean, there's always ways to skin a cat. And the thing is, what we're trying to do is just have opportunities to be able that when the opportunity arises, that we can make revenue be generated for GDOE, that it's already in statute, and that we don't have to pedal back again and say, oh, we can't do that because we don't have the authority. It's better to have the authority and not use it than need it and not have it. So that's my point. But we never asked for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't never ask for it, but I would, because what I'm looking at, because it's been presented in a couple of settings, I know I need to come back to look at the law and say what are we allowed to do, and we need those parameters defined so that we can we can do some more creative things out of the box, because all of us have been working very closely on the challenges that are ahead of us, and they all add up to a whole lot of money that doesn't appear to be in the local economy to be able to afford. But we know we need to work on schools that are 50 or 60 years old, and that's going to cost money, and renovation costs more than replacement. I've just finished the work on selecting the vendor for Simon Sanchez, which I can't discuss yet, but except it is, and that's, your body approved $166 million cap to do that work. That's just one campus. We have 39 now that are open. So we need to figure this out, and this is an opportunity and a venue to help us do maintenance on a more predictable schedule at a higher level. That's going to help, and I appreciate the creativity that went into forming the bill and the number of senators that have signed on. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. I also, with all due respect, I don't sign up along with some of the characterizations that were made earlier. I think that you're here to demonstrate your willingness to work within the framework. Let's just be clear. You've made tough decisions. Angel, yourself, and the board. It's not popular to close schools. Definitely not popular. And it's not popular to have to do what you have to do right now to manage the fact that you have a decreased population. It's just a reality. So in that, you've made those tough decisions, and you're continuing to make tough decisions going forward. So one thing I want to put on the record again, and I think, see, for me, unless I see pieces of paper or agreements made that have been done and discussions that have commitments have been made, to me, that's just all speculation, okay? It is right for individuals to start taking a look at facilities and government properties that are obviously being decommissioned. And I agree with you, Mr. Chairman Sablan, that we have all kinds of examples all over Guam right now of government buildings that we mothball and don't use, that are in disrepair, that are vandalized, that become homeless encampments, that become all kinds of vagrancy. So I agree with why we're here. Is this framework perfect? No. Is this a done deal? No. But the fact is that we have to start thinking along these lines, and we have to join you in the proactivity that you've put out there to say, look, we made the tough decisions, and now we have real estate within the inventory that could benefit the department, either financially or in collaboration with other systems. So I'm going to put it on the record again, and I don't think it's premature to do this. Mr. Chairman and Mr. Superintendent, have you initiated any discussions to at least sit down at the table with the DODEA system and the federal system on opportunities going forward in terms of their needs that could possibly meet our needs, bring in much needed financing, and operational capabilities of our properties, partnering with DODEA schools?
Not in recent months. About a little over a year ago, they did visit several of our sites, brought their engineering team with them from Okinawa to evaluate facilities. Unfortunately, some of the key players under the change in administration, are no longer in DODEA, so I've got to go back and rebuild the connections. The conversation is going to come out of Okinawa, out of that area office. But we can certainly revisit. They looked at Southern High School because of its proximity to the Naval Station. They looked at Ukadu High School because of its proximity to Anderson and the Marine Corps facilities at Camp Bloss. And they also looked at Ocean View Middle School. They were kind of taken aback at the conditions of some of the things there, but they brought their engineering team along to do the measurement, the observation, the calculations of what they thought it was going to take to bring those facilities up. But like I said, the change in the political situation has changed some of the players. So I need to go back and see if we can revisit that and reactivate it.
Well, I'm going to highly encourage you to do that. And as well, I would highly encourage you, Mr. Chairman, to consider a discussion on the board and maybe adopting a resolution. You know, let's be honest with ourselves and put everything on the table. We are now up against $120 million of renovation costs that we're committed to that we cannot fulfill. We are knocking against the federal government right now that looks like they are not going to make any changes when it comes to change of their attitude or positioning on federal funds. Now, I know you're actively, because of the meetings we've been having, and we announce our meetings. These are not private meetings. I know that you've been doing everything you can to get another letter in terms of reconsideration and trying to rescope how you're making that presentation to make them realize how it is associated with COVID and we should be able to use that money. But absent that, let's be honest with ourselves. We are going to be facing a need for funding infusion to be able to handle this issue. Locally, we are, and I am preparing to go forward and see if we can get some kind of financing arrangement. But in the meantime, we've been touting Guam and asking the federal government to understand what our position here is in Guam in all of the impacts of the military buildup. Financially, yes, it has helped our coffers. But in our community, it has caused a lot of changes and a lot of necessity to change. So once again, I think this is timely to put this on the table, that we're talking about possibilities of leasing property, to talk to the federal government, to talk to Dodea schools, to see if there is still interest. This is a reality. Once again, I'll reiterate on the record, our charter schools have come before this body in committee and also in front of our hearings on charter schools. Dodea kids are going to our schools. Dependents who are here that have teaching qualifications and educational qualifications are expressing interest, and some even working in our charter schools. This coming together of the school system, once again, of Dodea and GDOE is a reality. It's a reality because it's already happening, not at the GDOE level, but you are partners as well with the charter schools. You have the same student population essentially migrating in and out, and I hear in and out. I was at a lunch the other day, and a parent of special needs child said, I love the charter school, but I had to take my child back to Department of Education because the services are more robust and they're better. So you have transitions in and out of charter schools even as you speak right now. So I just want to once again say, I believe this opportunity and this vehicle is twofold. One is partnerships, perhaps with the charter schools that are currently looking at expanding, but also partnerships with military schools to ensure that we can get towards reintegration. I think it's good for our community. And also the fact that we have opportunities because we have the property. Yes, the structures are dilapidated. Yes, they need refurbishment. Maybe they need to be raised and completely built again. But the fact is that you have the inventory, and I think we should put all options on the table, and I want to just get your final thoughts on that.
Senator, I agree with you. And every option that we can exercise that makes sense and we can manage effectively for our community, we need to take advantage of it. And I will reach out to the folks in Dodea and see what we can, if we can revitalize that conversation.
I know that there is statute that says that GDOE facilities can also be used as charter schools. In this case, though, we're already at the cap for charter schools on Guam. And so in order for any of our facilities to be used by a charter school, it has to be an existing charter school. It can't be a new one, because unless, of course, the legislature amends the cap to over 7. But we're also very open to that. We've heard from US DOE that they are going to give more money to charter schools than to public schools. So that maybe is another avenue we look at. Do we convert some of our own schools and charter them so that they can get the funding that's coming out of US DOE? And I certainly appreciate all the help, Mr. Chair, of us all working together to try to get some of this funding from USDOE be given back to Guam. And if you haven't heard the good news from yesterday, remember the 27 million that we supposedly lost because it was not liquidated in time? Well, we got 9 million of that back. They approved to open the liquidation period for 9 million of the community block grant. So the superintendent's going to get on the noggins of all those people that make those invoices. This is not new money. This is money to pay past invoices. And so at least we have $9 million to pay, and that we don't have to get out of the general fund or to look somewhere else to make good for these vendors. We're still working with the special education, SPED funds, to see whether or not we can also have their $7 million that supposedly have been lost to be reopened and change the liquidation dates for that. So we are working towards that. And I told the superintendent last night, I hope we get more good news from, it's the same person that denied our appeals to send us a letter that says, hey, good news for you, we're going to reopen your liquidation period, for at least for the committee. So I think they understand where we're coming from, that we're not asking for any special treatment, but just look at us way out here. You know, we're not in the continental United States. Look at us out here and see the circumstances that we have to deal with. And if you say that you have to deny our appeals because they weren't COVID-related, then what is not COVID-related in our education system? We closed it down because of COVID. Bringing it back up to par, we need to do some mitigation. And you're denying us that because it's not, a construction is not part of COVID, then we have to put the English in a different way. I don't know, we have to chamorize it or what, but we have to, you know, put it in a different verbiage to make them understand. And I think they are now beginning to understand just the fact that they have opened up this opportunity to give us additional liquidation period for $9 million. It's good news.
That is good news. And forgive me if I'm somewhat aggressive on this, but it's me who you're going to come to see when we get final decisions. And that's why I'm saying I appreciate every opportunity. So once again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I really hope you have a vigorous conversation with the board on this issue, because it sounds like with the opportunities that are unfolding with USDOE, so then you're right. Maybe that's not a direct conversation or at this time, but if you now have a major transformation where funding is coming in and USDOE converts its current properties, we lift the caps for charter schools, who's going to attend those charter schools? If Nodea says they're not expanding their school system, they'll start sending their students. Their student population starts to migrate there. We have a case to bring up to the feds. Hey, once again, we had agreements with you before where you pay $6,800, $7,000 a year for your children to attend our schools. There's already precedents for that. Once we open that door and we start moving in that direction, we start negotiations again. So I'm just asking you to use this, and I appreciate the author of this bill. I think this is the vehicle, because that's what you can come back to us with later on with the board and with the superintendent and say, you know, now that we see the opening on the charter school side, we need you to also in agreement with this type of legislation, include legislation that lifts the caps and then now gets us to where we're entering in agreements with charter schools, because we have the capability with the lifted caps and they have the ability to recognize the revenue and bring in the student base. So I appreciate your open-mindedness, and I know this bill is simply under development at this point. And that's why I'm happy with the conversation. I'm happy with your openness to work with the committee, and I think this vehicle is really going to be something that will assist us going forward. So thank you very much for your efforts, and once again, thank you for all the work you're doing in spite of all of the difficulties that you're facing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. And now, Senator Agustin, I'll allow you time to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, Mr. Chair and Mr. Superintendent, this is a work in progress. is like trying to just find ways to help DOE. There's many other ways, but it's a work in progress. This bill is the opening to find ways to help you. And I'll be working with the chair. I'm gonna reach out to land management, find out what is DOE property and what is Guam, and find out what they have on record. And then we try to word the bill to include the board members, to include even consider what the other colleagues brought up, Gita. Sure, I'm gonna reach out to these agencies and find out, are you willing to do this? Do you have the expertise? Sure, they do leases. I mean, they do leases for DOE. They do leases for another part of the world here on Guam. But we'll figure this out, and it's a work in progress. And at the end of the day, we want to just get it passed so you have the authority to do what you need to do and generate some money. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Agustin. This now concludes the public hearing for Bill number 70-38, introduced by Senator Joe San Agustin. The committee will continue to accept written testimony within 7 days from today, which may be addressed to myself, Senator Vincent Borja, as the Chairman of the Committee on Education, Libraries, and Public Broadcasting, or mailed to DNA Building Suite 502-238 Archbishop Flores Street, Hagutner, Guam. You may also send your testimonies to contact@senatorvinceborja.com. This morning's public hearing is now adjourned, and the time is now 10:56 a.m. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you for coming back.